Pumped to be here at Becker's Tackle Shop. Thank you, Mr. Blake, for hosting us here. We are excited to explore this new platform that is the Big Bass Streams podcast with you guys. And we're going to kick this off with a bang with two of my good mates from down under. Where are we? We're in Idaho.
We certainly are.
Yeah.
It is a little bit cooler here than it is back home, I can tell you.
So for those of you guys that are geographically challenged, Australia is actually going into summer as we are going into the fall and winter here in North America. So it's a little bit of a climate shock. A little bit of a climate shock for me driving through my first ice storm to get here, as you guys probably saw on my social media not too long ago. But anyways, we're here to celebrate Carl and Kayla Jochimson, who just got hitched. It's been nothing but good vibes here in the town of Coeur d'Alene. We've had some amazing candid conversations with these guys, and I think that's the difference people are going to see through this media, is that it's guys with similar experiences, bouncing ideas off one another, and really utilizing each other as a resource to help us fulfill our dreams, because Big Bass Streams, I feel, is a very relatable thing, because we all dream of big fish.
Always.
You two especially.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the difference with everybody that's going to be coming on to this podcast is the body of work being represented. So we're going to introduce Mr. Glen Casey here of Bassman Spinnerbaits and Mr. Ian Miller of Miller Rods, and expose you guys to the incredible body of work that these two gentlemen represent. So first things first, a little intro. Glenn, you want to tell them about yourself and your brand?
Yeah, well, Bassman has been going for about 20 odd years. So we've been hand making Bassman spinnerbaits for over 20 years in Australia. So a lot of that knowledge has come over that period of time. And also with tournament anglers like Carl Jochimson, guys back at home, Rod McKenzie with the Big Murray Cod, all that sort of thing. It's just been a whole help of knowledge which has gone into this sort of product, chasing big fish.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Mr. Ian?
Well, I started off, mucking around with fishing rods when I was a kid, making them like a lot of people do. Rolling them on my mum and dad's dining room table after they'd gone to bed. That morphed into a profession, a full-time job for me, maybe 30 odd years ago. Hand making, but in the last 5 to 10 years, 20 years ago I started designing for Shimano in Australia, designing their rod ranges, which I learned a real lot from, because you're designing for all different types of fish and designing a lot of different types of rods as well. So that was something that really taught me a lot. And these days I have a production range now in Australia, and also one in America, which Carl helped me with. I came over every year, and we did a lot of fishing. We fished as many states as we could and as many different waterways as we could. I fished with guys like yourself.
We did.
I've always had a really strong adage, which is, if you can fish with the best, you learn a lot. You learn so much more than you learn on yourself and by yourself, and that's why social media and what you do, and the educating you do with anglers is so key to the guys that can find success. So anyway, that's how I work. We've got a lot of rods out there now that I've designed with the knowledge of not just my background, but the background of guys like yourself and Carl. That's where we're at.
It's real exciting, and what I appreciate about both these gentlemen is your attention to detail and how technical you guys are, especially with the development of your product. I mean, down to the components on your baits, down to, I can't wait to show you guys the mad scientists that these two represent. And they've got it broken down to a science, man.
I don't look that mad, do I?
No.
Oh yeah. You guys should have seen them last night in downtown Coeur d'Alene.
We'll leave that alone, will we, please?
But one of the first questions I got to ask you both, okay, you guys take a turn answering this question, is you guys got to tell me about the one that got away, because we all have that story.
Ooh.
The one that haunts you to this day.
Yeah, well, I've got one. Featured around a trip. We'd done some DVDs back in the early days and I done them with Rod McKenzie and that down on the Murray. And we done this one trip. There was a group of 4 of us, and there was 6 cod over 100 pound caught in a 4-day stint.
Over 100 pounds.
Over 100 pounds.
Not 100 centimeters.
No, 100 pounds. And we lost a couple of others. Guess who lost theirs? I dropped my fish.
Oh.
So to that day, it haunts me.
What are the specs on a fish of that caliber? Like length, girth, any idea?
Well, a lot of them do change because it just depends on how they're actually been feeding. Now, these are river fish, so they can be probably not as fat as some of the lake fish, but their length just gets 1.5 metre long. So that's probably equates, is it about 5 foot, 1.5 metre? Something like that for a freshwater fish.
Wow.
And their mouth is like that. They're a bit like Goliath groper.
Right.
The Goliath groper.
But freshwater dwelling species.
Freshwater fish. Yeah. So that haunts me to this day.
How did you lose it? Gotta break it down.
Yeah.
I know you replayed it a couple times.
Yeah. Well, I keep coming back to not having me drag set properly. Trying to stop the fish. It was too late. Once the fish was running, drag wasn't set hard enough. I tried to thumb the spool, still wasn't enough, so spat the hooks. You've hit a couple of them, so you know how hard it is. Yeah, and spat the hooks.
Man.
That haunts me to this day because a group of fellas I go fishing with, nearly every time, sitting around a campfire, they go, who hasn't caught 100 pound cod? so that one haunts me to this day.
That's a pretty tough school though.
Oh,
who hasn't caught 100 pound cod? Yeah.
They did, mate. They stuck it to me. So, and big time. So yeah.
That's incredible. I can't even imagine 100 pound fish because I think the big one that I got was probably 50 to 70 pounds, something in that range.
Yeah. It was a pretty wild trip. We just went fishing. It was a group of guys that went fishing. We should have filmed it. But yeah, the amount of big fish on that trip was fantastic. It was unbelievable.
Probably once in a lifetime, huh?
Yeah, it was, mate. It was just, you just get a good group of guys together and they just go fishing and that stuff just happened. It was amazing. Yeah, the stuff we seen that trip. Yeah, big fish, big fish.
Man.
And we got one fish that was 100 pound that both David Hodge and I were holding. And until we put it on the computer, we didn't realise that it had a bite mark on it from another cod. And that was fantastic. We want to get that fish.
Wow.
So we've got to try and build baits to get those fish.
Yeah,
rods.
What are
Land
some
we
of
can do
the
that.
what are some of the prey items of these cod? Because a lot of these guys that are bass fishermen, obviously, they don't even know what a Murray cod is.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the I suppose the initial one is bony brim. We call shad, I suppose, over here. And then the crayfish or crawfish is their starting point. Then when they start to get bigger, you have Murray cod. Not Murray cod. You have the European carp, which are starting to jump up in size. And also, they've
How big of a carp will they eat?
probably about maybe they'll get it down. We've seen them with turtles and also cormorants or shags.
Guys call them shags, right?
Yeah, where there's so many
Snakes.
snakes.
Big snakes.
Oh, okay.
Big
yeah.
lizards.
So they're just like largemouth.
Yeah.
They'll
No,
eat whatever they can.
Whatever
we have
they
a
can.
lizard called a goanna, and they can be from as long
Yeah.
to me to Glen. They eat them.
Yeah, definitely. Whatever they can fit in their mouth, they fit in their mouth.
It's pretty cool. You guys should definitely pay
Yeah.
attention to.
So, and then when you're
to
trying
the
to
cod
make
fishing world.
baits and rods for them, it's a lot of fun.
Ian, what's your horror story, brother?
Oh, you're taking me into the deep, dark
Oh
depths.
man, I know.
This is the sort of thing that I don't like to remember, let alone dwell on. But while you guys have been talking, I've been replaying several fish in my mind. I'm just sinking lower and lower into my chair. Because I've just about everything I've fished for over the years, I've lost a big one of that.
Oh yeah,
I've
I can
lost
relate.
Huge 1,000-pound marlin,
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
huge trout, or at least big trout for Australia, big barramundi, pretty much everything. I've lost a big one, but probably, there's a couple that do hurt, and they're relatively recent. One was a big snook 2 years ago down in Florida.
Okay.
So that, not an Australian fish, but actually it was a giant snook. Carl and I went fishing with our bass gear, and of course our leader wasn't heavy enough.
Oh, always.
And of course I hooked an absolute giant, like a trophy, and got it out from the docks, and right beside the boat it just bit through the leader, and that hurt.
Wow.
That hurt.
I'm actually surprised it's not a native fish.
Well, yeah.
Maybe that's more recent, huh?
Yeah, it's more recent. It's,
Okay.
yeah, the other ones, as I said, I'm just trying to get them out of my mind. But we did hook I was marlin fishing where I live, and we hooked a blue marlin, and it was over 1,000 pound. I'd just been fishing the Great Barrier Reef off Cairns for
Okay.
giant marlin, so we'd seen a couple of big ones. And I went back home and our season started, and we hooked this fish that it was the biggest marlin I've ever seen, regardless of where I fished. And at that point, a 1,000 pound marlin hadn't even been landed in Australia.
Mm.
So that could have been anything, that fish, but you know, when you're not supposed to land them, things happen. Like in this particular case, a sunfish swam into the line.
Oh.
One of those giant
Yeah.
oceanic sunfish.
Yeah, it came from right under the boat, and the marlin was that big, it didn't even know it was hooked. It ate one lure, tried to eat another lure, and then just sat under the boat following us, just with the rod loaded like that. It wasn't even doing anything because it was just wondering where all that bait had gone that we you know, we reeled the rest of the lures in. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a sunfish swam into the line and went all crazy like they do, and we untangled it, but the damage had been done, and that woke the marlin up. And it ran probably, I don't know, 500 metres jumping until the line, you know, broke. We were set up, we were ready to go on it, but we couldn't put any pressure on it. So yeah, that's
that
certainly one
hurts.
that got away.
That hurts.
That's brutal, man.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah, when people that can understand what goes into hunting a trophy fish,
Mm.
Mm.
and you finally get that opportunity,
And then
only
it
to blow it.
Goes south. Yeah.
Because I can think back to mine. One of my top one, it's still to this day. Probably the second biggest fish I've ever put hooks into, largemouth bass wise. And this is probably back in 2009 or 10. And probably towards the end of a 5 to 6 year stint where I went nothing but giant baits looking for this teener, right? Because that was like the next level past a double digit fish in bass fishing. And I had gone so hard for so long and dedicated myself mentally and financially. I put everything to the side to chase these bass. And I'm on one of my favorite lakes at the time. This is Lake Casitas that used to kick out fish up, you know, into the low 20s in its heyday. And I've seen a couple of just big, giant, black, old fish come up from those trees in this clear water. And we're out there fishing one of the big creek arms. You roll up on the secondary point, and I fire off a 10.5 inch 316 Armageddon. That's what I was fishing at the time. And throw it across the point, and I figured out this cadence where I got these fish to really trigger. Like, oh man, every time I do this, one's gonna at least come look at it. And I hit him with the cadence, and I'm kind of just daydreaming, just because I always keep my head on a swivel, trying to find out, or just trying to pay attention to everything else. So I make this long cast, work the bait a couple times, look the other way, and just hear, turn around, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm fishing with a buddy of mine at the time, and all I see is this mouth about this big with this almost 11 inch hard bait, like dog bone, or like just T-bone in its mouth. And she had eaten it, and sometimes they'll eat surface baits and like just kind of submerge a little bit. So she was sitting about 2 or 3 feet down instantly after eating it, and she's shaking the bait. And I was actually fishing a 300 size low profile bait caster. So yeah, this fish is sitting there in gin clear water. It's like 10:30 in the morning, bluebird skies, no wind, so I can see everything. Right, I see this biggest mouth I've ever seen with the freaking giant swim bait in her mouth, and she does this. And about the second or third time she does it, the bait gets shook free because I couldn't get it moving. I couldn't get any forward momentum on it. and I'm just instantly crushed, obviously, right? Literally the biggest bass I'd ever hooked. Just shook my bait, and my bait's floating up like this. And right behind it, she's on it still. After I stung her, I'm like, no way. I'm like, watch this, to myself. Hit it one more time with this crazy little retrieve that I figured out. And sure enough, man, she was fired up. Smoked it again. Oh! And then the same thing. She's sitting underneath of a couple feet, and I just can't get that handle moving.
Mm.
And she just sits there and does this again, and shook it a second time.
Oh,
And I'm telling you right now, I've seen enough big fish in my day, and thankfully I've got one bigger than that now. It doesn't haunt me as bad, but that fish is every bit of 14, 15 pounds.
Oh,
And
awesome.
at the end of that run, to have that happen, and then that same day I had a big swim bait bag full of like 25 custom triple trouts that Scott Whitmer had been making me, and like a bunch of originals, like baits I had just caught hundreds, maybe thousands of fish on. That blew out of the boat somehow.
Yeah.
That was the longest 2.5 hour drive home of my life. And me and my mate didn't say anything for probably about 3 or 4 hours. Like, not a word was spoken.
Yeah.
And, you know, sure enough, he goes, "Holy shit, dude, that was the biggest bass I've ever seen." And I just lost it. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I literally walked away from bass fishing for 2 years after that day.
Oh no.
I have literally seen grown men go into the fetal position on the deck.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't understand what this
It's
does
just,
to
it's
us.
just silence. It's like, are you okay?
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, on our boats we just turn around and go, "What did you do that for?
Yeah, that's right.
Why?" That would have been a really good photo.
Yeah. I don't know why you had to shake that one off.
Yeah, the struggles, man. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I feel like those struggles and those challenges are what make the successes that much more special.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. If it was easy, it wouldn't mean anywhere near as much.
And you wouldn't learn anything. You're learning from those sorts of mistakes every time, because I can tell you now, I'm not making that mistake on another fish.
I didn't since.
Yeah.
No more low profiles.
Yeah.
Not a one.
Yeah.
There's a reason I fish that reel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so as long as you're willing to accept the fact that there is a learning experience to come from every failure,
Every time.
every time, and that's what separates the guys that are great, in my opinion, and the guys that are good, is the ones that are willing to learn from those failures. And the way I see it, I failed a lot.
I did last night.
What did we learn there?
Stay at home.
Stay indoors.
Stay indoors.
Go to bed.
Do as you're told.
Exactly.
Oh, my
Do as you're
goodness.
told.
So,
Yeah.
man, those always hurt, boys. Those
Yeah.
always hurt. Now, obviously, you guys have taken a passion and what is for most people an extreme hobby and turned it into a livelihood. Right? What is it about fishing that you feel? And I don't know what it is that you guys might also have a love for in your life. Like for me, it's basketball. I love basketball, but like I know my threshold for basketball
Yeah.
is only about that high. Like for me, that's truly just something I like to do. There's really no, there's no. I don't want to shoot myself short either as a basketball player, but you know, there's really no way for me to monetize that passion
Yeah.
for basketball, like I've been able to do this far in fishing. And it's really only because of that extreme passion and love for the fishing game, I feel, is what makes it possible. What do you think it is about fishing that is different from everything else in life?
I think, well, for me, it's actually been out on the water. It's nature. That's what keeps going. It keeps it all going back. Like we just spoke about, we're always learning, but just to be out on the water, you know, we just see birds, fish, all the aquatic life, and that it's just fantastic. So it's just, it's an actual release from the everyday stress and everything like that. It's just natural. So yeah, that's what I get out of it. And then, you know, you start doing your passion. It does become a job and a livelihood, and you look forward to getting back out on that water. Yeah, that's how I sort of see it. But my other loves is I like fast cars as well. So,
Oh.
yeah, I don't mind fast cars.
You're one of those boys.
Sort of.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, boats, but yeah, I can't afford a fast boat, but
I can't afford fast anything really.
yeah. But anyway.
Awesome. Ian?
I think if I have to break it right down to the very essential, it's just something that's inside me, which I think goes back eons to, you know, our forefathers who fished and hunted to survive. And I really believe that most of us are hardwired to be like that. It's just that some people choose not to connect to it or don't connect to it for some reason. But I certainly have, because it's a beautiful environment. I love being on the water. I love all that sort of stuff. And just occasionally, you know, we stop and we look around and we just go, mate, this is just, what a place. If I wasn't into fishing, I wouldn't be here. There's only a few people in the world that ever come here, and they're all fishermen. So how good is that it gives me that? And then we go, enough of that. I've got to catch some fish.
Yeah.
So you know, it's the challenge of catching them for sure. And I guess what converted my career into making fishing rods is I love designing. You know, that's the other part of me that I really love, the challenge of designing and figuring out the mechanics, the technical. You touched on before, because there is so much of that behind every successful product, even as simple as they are. There's always plenty of work that's gone into that design to make it one of the best. Sometimes it happens by mistake, occasionally, but typically there's always a lot of experience and thought and smarts that go into good designs. So, you know, those two things are what keep me in it, wanting to achieve great designs and just wanting to catch the fish. I've just got to figure out how I catch that fish. My life depends on it. I've got to do it. I want to catch that big one too. So that's, you know, apart from that, I love most sports. I'm pretty active. I still play sports, and that's probably, you know, outside of family, that's my other big deal.
Awesome. Yeah, fishing is there's something very primal about it. Kind of like you said, right?
Yeah.
It's not that far removed that people actually had to sustain themselves by hunting, fishing.
I know
gathering.
people that still do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's become almost strange to a lot of people that are removed from that in just one or two generations.
Because, you know, the other thing is, you know the old saying, never work with children and animals, because, you know, you're always something's going to go wrong. That's in movies or whatever that came from. But you can never recreate the same thing in fishing.
No, never.
So it makes it all the harder to work it out. And because you're actually dealing with an animal, there's another dimension there that, as hard as we've studied them and as long as we've known them, we still don't really know what's making them tick a lot of the time.
No.
Right.
And they apparently only got a brain the size of, and we spend all this money trying to outsmart them.
Yeah.
Who's the smart one?
Right. No, 1,000%.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that it's an ever-changing puzzle, I think, is what keeps it exciting. Especially with, you know, guys like yourselves that have achieved so much. Well, except the 100-pound club part, but
Thanks for that. That
big sniff part.
That's all right. I'm not even.
But yeah, it's an ever-changing puzzle, and every type of fishing is a whole new puzzle in itself. And man, it's a mental exercise for me. And it's great because I get to take perspectives from other fishing cultures and try to apply them over here.
And isn't that cool when you can apply something?
Yeah.
Or even one species to another.
1,000%.
And all of a sudden you might do a different retrieve that works on another thing, and it clicks, or something about that reminds you of what you might
what you can
use
actually
to be successful.
take it from that system to another system to try and just because you know there's something missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even one species to another.
Yeah.
Well, I think what people might be underestimating is themselves, and like, man, you're almost a amateur scientist as an angler, because you're asking all these questions, right? You're formulating these hypotheses in a theory, and going out and testing it every time we come in a tackle shop and see something on the wall that inspires us, like, oh man, I could probably get them to eat this thing.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out how that piece fits in the puzzle.
Definitely.
It's just great, man. It's just a very unique world. It's really fulfilling, and there's something about that tick,
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
mate, that's gold.
Man,
That's what we
it's
live for.
everything.
Yeah.
That's why I never got into trolling, because I don't feel that, that instant connection to something alive on the other end of that line.
You can do it well, not freshwater trolling, I'm not sure, but saltwater trolling you can. We tease marlin a lot of the
Okay.
time, so we'll actually troll a hookless lure. And when the fish comes up behind it, that's when you get that out of the way, and you can present the size bait that you want on the size tackle you want to use for that particular fish. And then sometimes you have to continue the tease on the fish with the bait, and then you do feel the bite. It's like bang, and like that's exciting. That's right at the back of the boat.
And I can tell you now, trolling in freshwater sometimes can be the only way you can do it. But it is not just throwing a lure over the back and putting it in a rod holder and dragging along
It's
the
not?
creek. No, I mean, there is a science to it, and I've been lucky to spend a lot of days in the boat with Rod McKenzie,
Okay.
and he got it down. He's got it down to an artwork of different lures working different directions in the current to get them to a depth where he wants them to be, and they're
Wow.
never in the rod holder. And you know that tick you were talking about?
Oh yeah.
Mate, you get hit by a big Murray cod holding the rod and you feel that tick, you just about lose your shoulder. It just goes crack.
It's a beautiful
So
thing.
it is pretty awesome. It's not our ideal way to fish for them, but
Yeah.
sometimes you've got to do it.
For sure.
So there is an art to it. It's not
Oh.
just chuck and chance.
Even in the trophy bass fishing community, or even in the trophy bass fishing culture of Southern California, some of the best trophy anglers are trollers.
Okay.
And they were much the same. They had it down to a science. I mean, they're fishing like wire lines, they're fishing whatever it takes to present that bait in that zone and doing it efficiently.
Yeah, holding it in the strike zone for long periods of time.
That's right.
Yeah.
They learn how to maximize their odds.
Yeah.
And they play those percentages, and their body of work supported.
Yep.
Like, man, their hypothesis might be a little bit better than somebody else's.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is no argument that trolling isn't effective. Like, gosh,
Just
I
if you
just-
choose not to do it.
I just like
Yeah.
casting too much.
Yeah, mate, 99% of the time
Yeah.
we love casting blunt, I can tell you. Yeah, sometimes
sure.
it does happen.
Yeah, they're sad days.
Yes.
Now, whenever I talk to guys in Australia, they have an incredible respect for the both of you guys. Who did you guys have coming up that you were influenced by and maybe took some of what they did and incorporated into your persona?
Ooh, for me, I guess it was some of Australia's earlier outdoor writers, authors and journalists, that really inspired me. You know, I can remember magazine covers from 30 years ago that I'll never forget. Just the image itself was captured so well that I just had to go and do that.
Yeah.
And probably on the other side, on the design side, it would have been probably some of the early fishing rod pioneers, like the late great Jack Erskine. He was more of a saltwater guy, but very famous, even in America. He's IGFA Hall of Fame and all that sort of thing. They were the guys that I looked up to. The ones that not only caught the fish, but also were able to impart on me how good it was to go to those places and catch those fish, and maybe just give you a little bit of a sniff on how you might be able to do it successfully, and that's it, you're all in. You just got to go and do it. And then on the other side, the design guys. And back then, you know, designing 50 years ago or 40 years ago, there was a lot of stuff that still wasn't discovered. You know, these days we're we're learning all the time, but you know, the discoveries get smaller and smaller. Whereas way back then, it was wide open. It was, there was a lot to learn and a lot to discover, and those guys chewed through it pretty quick, and they came up with some really, really good decisions. They didn't often go down the wrong path. So you know, those guys were good at it. That's who did it for me.
Awesome.
Well, my first influence, this is going to sound really funny, but was my great grandmother. We were dragged down to the beach with a hand line. We'd dig some pippies.
What's a pippy?
A pippy
It's
is
a
like a
small
clam,
clam.
like a clam, and we'd use them for bait. So you got a hand line with a hook and sinker on it. You find your bait, smash it open, put it on the hook, chuck it into the surf to catch either some bream, whiting, flathead. And she used to drag us out on the beach for years when we were young kids.
That's
so
awesome.
that's sort of where it started for me. And then to the fishing riders, it was the older fellas like Ron Colcutt, Vic McChrystal, all those guys, even Rod Harrison. When they'd write a story, it wasn't just a blanket article or this is what we use, this is what we do. They took you on a journey. When you read their story, you actually felt like you were there, and you just go, oh, I want to go fishing now. They just took you away, and I just loved it. So that's what kept me going, just wanting to do it. So those guys were just awesome, and I think we've lost a fair few of those sorts of guys as time goes on, because writers back home to an extent have changed the way they've written articles, and they're just more sort of itemised. You've got to do this at this time, and that's it.
Right. But that's a perfect lead into my next question, because this is kind of a fun one for me. You guys have seen this fishing industry change probably a couple different ways throughout your careers. So I'm going to ask you about a couple things and I want your opinion. Do you think it was better before or after this prominence of social media? And one of the first ones I was curious about was how information was being spread via publications and writing. And I have a pretty good idea of which you guys are going to pick, because I think I'm on that same page.
Well, you know, once again, back in the day when you almost had to be a qualified writer to be published.
That's right.
It kind of weirded the good guys from the also rans, you know. So by the time you got into print, you had the editor's respect and all that sort of thing, and the editor was usually a pretty knowledgeable person, so who knew people and knew whether you were legit or not. So the credibility was a big factor. If you read anything by those guys, you could pretty much say, well, this is the good oil, you know. And they didn't write about stuff they didn't know about.
Right.
These days, you know, information is so cheap now, and anybody can get out there if they do it the right way. It can be very, very hard to tell, you know, what is the good oil and what is, you know, somebody's opinion based on very little experience.
That's right.
Yeah, so I probably have to go with the old guys, but in saying that, guys like yourself who are willing to do the hard yards, forge a different path, just keep on doing what you do better than anyone else. Obviously you're different to all the other background noise out there when it comes down to it. So you can still find the right people on social media. It's just that it's a little harder to do.
That's right.
Yeah. I totally agree with Ian on that one, but the only thing would be is trying to find out how you can get rid of the misinformation that's on social media.
Yeah.
So I find that hard. There's so many guys that, like you just said, that catch a couple of fish, whack up photos, and everybody takes that as gospel, and to an extent it does hurt the industry to an extent. That's the way I feel about it anyway. But
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I feel like those filters are no longer in place.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Right. And everybody's got a platform. So unfortunately for the person looking for relevant, impactful information, man, they just get inundated with a flood of inexperience and untested hypotheses.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it's obviously opened up the doors for
definitely.
a lot of people that couldn't break through those filters, whatever they were. And but at the end of the day, the cream should rise to the top,
It should.
That's right.
right?
It should.
No matter what era.
Mm.
It's funny hearing like basketball guys debate, like, oh man, that my team would dominate in this era. No, they would get killed in this current era. Like, oh, your era's soft. And I see the same similarities in fishing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, man, if you got it, you got it. And the real ones can see it.
Definitely.
For sure. What are you guys most proud of from your contributions to this fishing industry? Because you guys are both big time players. Obviously, especially down under. But I mean, you guys are here in North America. Still hustling.
I get a real pride in actually, like, that's a new bait that we redesigned, but to design that, put it all together, and then go out in a couple of days' time and it's producing.
Yeah.
It's catching fish. You know, it's completely redesigned from what we've done, and then to actually see other people catch fish on something you've made with these.
Right.
That's what gives me.
And this.
Yeah.
And a lot of that.
Yeah, and a lot of help from a lot of other anglers and that along the way, which has helped give you that knowledge as well. But yeah, that stings me.
Nice.
You see some of the boys holding up some of these monster fish, and you just go, yes.
You literally had a hand in it.
Yeah, definitely. And I show, like, we have a couple of people that work for us and that, and I go, you made the skirt that went on the back of that. You painted the head that went on that one. So yeah. And when you see blokes like Carl walk across stage, and thank God, held up that trophy, and yeah, you helped. You were a part of trying to do some of that sort of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. I guess the thing I'm most proud of at the moment is a little fishing rod I designed called the Jig Freak Power. Everyone's got to remember that, because that's the rod Carl used on his first elite championship win. So he said we're still hustling, right? So
That's right, 1000%.
that's one thing. But
Subtle product placement.
but look, I'm just proud of what I've done. You know, it's anything that comes my way, I gladly accept it. I'm not embarrassed about anything that comes away, because I know I've damn well worked for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm proud of it. Like Glen said, every single person that's proud of a fish they caught and they used a miller rod.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's when you have such a passion for what you do, it's easy to be proud of doing something good with your brand. So I get all inspired just even thinking about it. So I'm proud all the time of what I do. I can't believe people go through life without feeling pride all the time. And maybe they're chasing the wrong things. I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
maybe they are.
Yeah, it's easy for me to feel pride.
Right, totally. Yeah, I think that goes back to your motivations at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
Right, you got a lot of people that want to be in the industry that they have a passion for, but their motivations might be a little bit misplaced. Yeah, and what really separates it is the guys that find that kind of reward, love the game for the right reasons.
Well, they probably don't see what goes in behind it either. Like Ian and we were talking about on the way coming over. Like, I start work at 5 o'clock in the morning.
And I'm still there at 9 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
Oh, see, I'm like you. Like I'm into the wee hours of the morning working.
No.
I just don't get up for it.
We start there, and mate, it's 7 days a week. And then when you see something that you've produced, it's just a big buzz. It's the biggest
You've
buzz.
got to live it. I think,
Yeah.
you know, the days are gone where you could, you know, just get lucky and be successful.
Yeah.
Or,
You can't sustain luck.
no, or just have some talent and be successful, or just work hard and be successful. These days, it's like sport. It's like your favourite basketball players. They need to have drive and talent.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the dedication all together to make it. Otherwise, they're not going to cut it. And I think any successful fishing story these days is pretty much the same. You have to have both.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Carl's a perfect example of that.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, if there was one thing you guys could tell to a younger version of yourself, what would that be? You guys can dwell
Just
on that
follow
one.
your passion. You know, whatever it is that you love doing, you can make a career out of that, more than likely.
Definitely.
If you work hard enough at it, because if you have that much love for it, that's probably driven by the fact that you probably do have, you know, a good angle on what you do or how you do it, which makes you pretty good at it. So all you need to do is add work.
Yeah.
You know the old saying: if you love your work, you never work a day in your life.
I don't agree with that.
So, yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Like, I kind of get the gist of it, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I'd be along the same.
Follow your passion.
Yeah, definitely. And when people try to tell you that you're silly doing it, just prove them wrong. Prove them wrong. Carl's a perfect example. There's a few guys that I know back at home in Australia think, he's never going to make it. He's never going to make. Mate, he's proven them wrong. And I'm just so proud of him to turn around and just go, yeah, stick it to him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like a healthy chip on your shoulder to motivate you, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it helps. No doubt
Yeah.
about it. I mean, you know, the successes and the wins help too, but certainly it doesn't hurt to have the odd door shut in your face.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no. Yeah.
Yeah, some of those are some of the biggest motivations in my life.
Yeah.
Career.
Yeah. And it happens quite
To
regularly.
everybody, really.
Yeah.
Everybody's
It's-
had that experience.
It's not an easy ride.
Not at all.
No.
Awesome. So when the story's all written and the book's been published, what kind of legacy do you guys want to leave behind? Man, when people talk about Ian Miller, what are they going to talk about?
I'd like them to probably remember how good my product performed, because that's what I'm about when it comes to my brand. You know, I started off being attracted to making fishing rods because you could do artwork and fancy stuff with them and all that sort of thing, and I still get that, and I still make sure that my rods have a great cosmetic. But I kind of left behind all that fancy stuff a long time ago because it didn't actually make the fishing rod any better. And when I'm designing a tool for catching fish, it's got to work just right. It's got to be perfect. You know, if I pick up a rod at the development stage and I just go, man, I've got to go fishing now, and I've got to use this rod. That's when I know I just shiver up my spine. And I've done a really good job here. So performance is what it's about for me, and yeah, that's what I'd like to be remembered for.
That's deep, man. You got any spoons?
Got any beers?
I think we got a beer right here somewhere. Glen?
Well, yeah, again, I'd probably have to go along the same with Ian. You know, it's just we made well, it's not me either. It's me and my wife. We sit down, we make
Shout
these.
out to Sue.
Yeah, you know, it's just we made a quality product. People caught some awesome fish on them. They work. We spent a lot of time designing it, and yeah, we made all round good baits. So yeah, that's what I'd like to be known for, or remembered as.
Yeah.
I suppose, and just good to be around because we don't mind having a giggle. So.
That's right. We've been doing a lot of giggling for the last 72 hours or so.
Yeah, so.
Well, I got good news for you guys. I think you guys have both cemented those legacies. So kudos to
thank
you.
you.
Tough.
Much respect. Another question is, you guys have had the opportunity to fish for Murray cod, Barramundi, largemouth bass, smallmouth bass. Where would you rank those 4 species?
Ooh, I think everything's got their own strength.
Yeah.
What I love about largemouth, from an Australian's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's almost as if they were designed for angling. You know, they have all the moods you could ask for. They can be easy, but that doesn't often happen. But they always are compelled to eat, and they've got a strong survival instinct. You know, they've got that big mouth for some pretty good reasons, and you can usually find a way to get them to bite. That's what I like about large.
Yeah.
You know, they'll challenge you. Every now and then they'll dangle a little bit of a carrot in front of you and think, I got these guys sorted out. And then you go to the next lake or the next day, or you know, the wind changes 5 miles an hour from a different direction. You go, hey, dude, where'd all the fish go? And that's a challenge.
It is.
Yeah. So that's what I like about the largemouth. I think, well, hey, it is an ideal species because look at the industry that's been built around it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's an accessibility to them, but at the same time, they can be the most challenging game fish, in my opinion, especially the trophies.
Yeah.
Highly pressured waters, but highly pressured trophy fish of any species offer that similar challenge.
Yeah, and I saw that so quickly when I started visiting out here and fishing with around the country, just seeing how diverse it was. You go 100 miles and they could be a different species.
Right.
It's only the next day, but it's different countryside, different
Yeah.
ecosystem in the water, and they're behaving totally different, so you just have to cut all those lures off and start again. But how good's that? The learning curve's just endless for me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's endless. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why they have these awesome tackle shops like this, full
Yeah.
of all of these options.
Mm.
And at some point in time, they've got a moment to shine.
Yep,
Yeah.
they've all got wall space for
Yeah.
a reason.
Yeah, that's right.
And I like a lot of that sort of stuff from the largemouth perspective, is in a lot of the techniques that they actually are using, with a little bit of twitching and playing around. We can take those techniques back home. Yeah, there's some stuff
Oh, yeah.
I've been looking at here today, we're going to use back home on our Murray cod. No, you can't talk of that. But yeah, I just think we can get that to work, but we got to change stuff. It's just not as simple as grabbing the American product and being able to use it straight back in Australia. We just got to play with it a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little bit of crossover
Yeah,
between the two, but you have to be pretty selective in what you're trying to apply to Australia. But there's a lot of learning that can be done
yeah,
from what you guys do over here, because
Definitely.
you've been catching bass on lures, or the industry's been going for over 100 years, right?
Right.
So we're relatively young in our learning curve on our fisheries.
Definitely.
So we've, you know what I said about fishing with the best, like this is a bit of a fast track for guys like me. Come over here, design a range of rods for largemouth bass and see how technique specific it all is. And I'm just going, wow, this is going to be so applicable back home. Not the exact product, but the ideas and the philosophies.
yeah,
Some of the boys that we work with in Big Bass Streams Australia were telling me how, like, just even recently, most of those guys, or many guys, couldn't see why you needed more than one rod and reel on the deck
yeah.
at a time.
No.
Like, that was just beyond, like, their train of thought.
Oh, exactly, and it's something that I've always disliked intensely with a lot of the tackle industry back home in terms of fishing rod design. It's like a cookie cutter
Yeah,
way of designing a rod. You know, you can have a 6.5 foot rod or a 7 foot rod. Well, what's the difference between them? Well, one's a 6.5 foot rod and what's a 7 foot rod? I'm like, well, what does that actually mean?
Right. And see, that's one of my qualms with the fishing industry as a whole. It's like, who's designing this stuff? Like, who's validating, like, that rod action to throw an 8-inch soft bait? Like, what does their body of work look like?
Yeah.
And I respect you both because you guys are both accomplished anglers. And your perspective, to me, is more valuable than somebody that sits in this lab that thinks that rod should do this for that because, oh, it works, kind of.
Yeah, people like 7 foot rods. What's not to like?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. I see a lot of that in the fishing industry, and across the board, not just rods, not just
Yeah.
spinner baits, but everything. I always kind of try to find the source. Like, who is that guy that builds those baits hanging up there? What drives them? And what is their body of work fishing wise look like? Because that matters to me, right? If I wanted to take basketball, like, shooting lessons, I wouldn't take them from somebody that couldn't make
Yeah.
shit
Don't take
out
'em from me.
buckets. Like, gotta get buckets, man. So, all right. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys feel about, like, each one of those 4 species. So those are the attributes you like about the largemouth.
Yeah,
Have you done some smallmouth fishing?
I have.
What do you think about those things? Because they're kind of a different
They
animal.
are. Yeah, I haven't done as much with the smallmouth, but they're certainly lovable.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, yeah. I like that they seem to maybe school a little bit better, and when I've caught them, they've typically been a little deeper, so we're probably using slightly different techniques. But then again, you throw a topwater and they come up and bite it.
Out of 30 feet
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're clear water, they're all that sort of stuff. So small. I think for me, smallies are a little bit like good fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
That's a
I
good way to
know.
put
I
it.
don't want to sell them too cheap, but and I'm not saying largemouth is the brainy one in the family, but smallies, whenever I've fished them, have always been fun.
Yeah.
You're just always enjoying it. Sometimes
Right.
you're largemouth fishing and it's such a grind, you're like, holy cow. Like, yeah, I caught one, I don't know if I'm happy or sad because I didn't like the way I caught it.
Yeah.
But, that's how I feel about those two. The Barramundi, it's just a wild animal, and they annihilate your lure, they annihilate your tackle. They also grow over a yard long and 50 pounds, and it is all anger and muscle, and they are in a whole league of their own when
So
it comes to that
that's where
side.
your nickname came from.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But so that's the Barramundi. That's before I found largemouth bass. I actually thought Barramundi was the complete fish.
Oh wow.
And in some ways, they have it over the largemouth because they grow so much bigger.
Right.
And with the Murray cod, well, fish of 1,000 casts, and
That's being quite optimistic.
yeah, maybe. But there's just something majestic about them, and they're such a different looking fish to everything else, and you just can't help but admire them.
They seem like an ancient fish.
Yeah.
I love Murray cod because I've done a heap of it. I love it because you got a big angry fish sitting in a big angry cranky snag, and you've got to let your bait sink in amongst that, and then it's all hell for a couple of seconds, and then you got to get him out. So I love that sort of stuff. Absolutely love it. So, but Barra are exactly the same. They're just angry and go. The harder you pull on them, the harder they want to go, and they just take off. So, yeah, they're both in their own class. Love them both.
Just kind of like the largemouth, smallmouth for us.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like, who do you pick, the blonde or the brunette?
No.
We're both married to blondes,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yeah, blondes.
Blondes. I was just
Blondes,
sort of
that's great.
thinking, should I answer that or not?
And largemouth, smallmouth? Have you got to fish for both
I've
of them?
only fished for the largemouth, and after what Ian's saying, I've got to come over and spend a lot more time.
Apparently there's some big smallmouth right down the street. So maybe we got to delay that flight home, huh?
Yeah, we just might have to.
You guys tired of this yet?
It's all
Very
good.
good.
It's all good.
55 minutes.
How much?
55.
55. All right, that's good.
You guys need waters?
No, all
I
good.
think we're good.
Scotch.
We could probably just wrap this up. Yeah, a little scotch, apparently. Did you bring any Bundy? Do not drink Australian rum straight.
Yeah,
Bundy,
you
that's-
can.
that's
You just got to
Australian
get
rum?
You got to get it cold. Get it cold.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah, get it cold.
My goodness. Awesome. Well, gentlemen,
Mate, thank
my
you.
pleasure. You guys have all the respect from me. Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule to
Anytime.
hang out with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like I said, when you're over home, come over at the right time.
Okay.
We'll put you into some mischief.
Nice. Oh man, I don't know what I'm getting myself into here. But,
It's only Australia. What could go wrong?
you're just like everything kills you, including these two guys. Thank you guys for tuning into the Big Bass Dreams podcast. We're doing things a little bit differently here. We've got some hammers here in the fishing industry worldwide now, so make sure you guys follow both of these gentlemen because they're even they're on social media now these days, right? We got Bassman Spinnerbaits.
Yeah.